Okay, this is one of the new generation Polaroid cameras, in this case the Polaroid Now, and there is also a current model called the Polaroid Go, which only comes in one color, and it maintains the same shape as the Now, but it's a lot smaller and more compact, and it uses a non-standard film size, so it's not really for Polaroid enthusiasts, I guess. Anyway, back to the Polaroid Now. I'm just going to explain how the current generation cameras work. Just want to say this one comes in a variety of colors, and there are indeed a lot of options available from Polaroid, and they also come in special edition ones like this one here, as I'm sure you've worked out, is from Star Wars, The Mandalorian. There is also one from this designer here, whose name is Keith Haring. So I'll go through all this shortly. Right, so just before proceeding, I'm going to switch video feed to a short clip that I took using the front camera of my iPhone, which explains how the new autofocus system works. So check it out now. Now, to explain how the infrared auto function works, I need to switch to the front camera because the rear camera blocks IR light, and that is common across modern smartphones. So here we can see in the slot or the recess between the viewfinder and the button to turn on the countdown timer, we can see 4 tiny components. Now the third component from the left is just an LED that illuminates amber when the timer is activated, and it flashes as the timer counts down. So we can ignore that because it has nothing to do with the autofocus function. But let's see what happens now when I depress the shutter button halfway. So if I come close enough, I'm sure you can see the infrared LED to the left flashing every time I depress the shutter halfway, and that basically sends out a beam to illuminate the subject. And the components that are next to it, so from where you're looking, the second and fourth dot, those are basically stereoscopic infrared sensors that sort of detect the infrared light bouncing off the subject. So what this system does in a nutshell is the infrared light illuminates the subject, and the other two sensors sort of figure out which picks up the infrared light better, and that tells the camera what the focal distance of the subject is. Okay, so now that you've seen that video, you appreciate why this camera has autofocus but does not have the standard Sonar transducer plate that you see on vintage Polaroid cameras, which are quite obvious because they are almost always a round circular metal disc covered by a grill, and that's basically the ultrasonic sound transducer, because they all work based on Sonar. Okay, so let's just talk about the film for a second. So the new generation Polaroid Now cameras can obviously, well, when they launch it, they launch matching film packs as well. So here's a standard color film. So that's just a standard one, and as you probably know, these are available in different colored borders like black and blue, etc. And they also release matching films for the cameras, so you can use one from Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and what you get with this is basically different borders. So it's just the theme of the frame really. and also you can get the Keith Haring one, and obviously all of these are just standard standard Polaroid size film, so 79 millimeters by 79 millimeters, and you can use them in the newer I-type cameras. So yes, these are called I-type cameras, the current generation, or the Polaroid Lab printer, which is a really smart device really, and they don't work with vintage cameras. The only reason for that is the vintage films like this one, they contain the battery built in. So if you don't already know, vintage Polaroid cameras are powered by the disposable battery that's pre-installed on the film cartridge. So the newer ones haven't got the battery, so you can't use them. So these newer cameras, you might have spotted, come with a micro USB port there for charging. So it's only for charging, there's no data transfer or anything like that. And there, as you can see, it's got built-in lithium-ion battery. Okay, now let's just have a quick look at the film packs. So with the new generation I-type films, they weigh in about 88 grams. So I've already checked all this, so they should be about 88 grams because they're all pretty much the same. Right, if we then weigh the vintage 600 film, you see it's slightly heavier because of the battery that's contained within. So if you had a vintage Polaroid camera, obviously you can't use the newer films, you got to use the old ones. But if you had access to a dark room, technically you could take the films out. Say you want to use a Star Wars film with your older vintage cameras. If you had a dark room, you could just take the films out and put it into one of these cartridges instead, because they will fit. Like I said, the only difference is the lack of the battery. Alright, so that's enough about the film. So coming back to the camera, so you've seen how the autofocus works. Let's just go through a few quick features. So there's a button there that allows you to turn off the flash. So if you press it once, the flash will turn off or the flash will be disabled for the subsequent shot. I think if you double click it twice, then it's disabled for all subsequent shots until power is turned off. Then you've also got a timer button here. So basically it's just a countdown timer. If you start taking the picture, it counts down before firing. Now in this case there's no film inside, so nothing gets ejected. Just one last thing I want to cover that I missed in the other video. So the autofocus system is very basic, so it only has two lenses that it swaps in. So in this case, if I press the shutter button halfway, it doesn't do anything because it's currently got the short range sort of macro lens installed, or I should say short range lens, so the 35mm one, and now it's got the long range one installed. So once again, now the distance it's going to detect is the distance of my iPhone. So if I depress the shutter button, just take a look at what happens to the lens as I depress it. So you can see it swapped another lens in place of the one that's already there, because it detects that the subject is now much closer. And if I now focus to a distant subject, again, which is the wall behind me, you can see it swaps in the other lens, which is the 40mm one. So what I'm trying to say is the lens doesn't actually move backwards and forwards like on a digital camera to sharpen the image. All it does is it chooses between one of two lenses. So it's a very basic autofocus system. Some people have complained that the autofocus on this particular Polaroid Now isn't that great, but I'm still new to it, so I can't comment on that. That's obviously the countdown counter, and just tell you what I'll do just before ending this video. I'll try to pop open the the film cover for you. Okay, so here it says input 5 volt 700 milliamps, so that's obviously the voltage and the current of the micro USB input for charging the battery. You've got the standard film pack there. Now, just wanting to note, the rollers are physically disconnected from the motorized gear when the door is open. This is in contrast to one of the other I-type cameras which was released before this, and that's called the One Step, I believe. Now, I think One Step hasn't got autofocus, but it's got Bluetooth connectivity and all that. And with that one, once the door is open, you can actually press a combination of buttons to spin the rollers by the motor itself, so you can clean them more easily. But with this one, you can't do that because it's physically disconnected, so you've got to rotate the rollers with your thumb and wipe them across when you want to clean them. Yep, okay, that's it. Thanks for watching.